It's a warm welcome here from our studios in Sarakunda. This is Star TV News and I am Ajaka Designer. In the headlines tonight, protesters reject Sankare to receive 3 years journalist petition. Gambia's path to new constitution interests religious groups across the country. Nogainjai, 3 victims of April 10 and 11 get free medical treatment in Turkey. On the international scene, Turkish legislators to sign off on Libya military support deal. Mali President Keita holds crisis talks amid unrest in the north. Sudan's Bashir convicted, sent to reform facility. Those were the headlines, and now the news in detail. Thousands of protesters have rejected the government spokesperson Ibrahim Sankare from receiving their petition at Denton Bridge. They chant, "We don't need Sankare. He's not qualified." More on this report with Maimuna Juf.
According to some of the protesters, Sankare was earlier heard on one of the local radio stations saying Operation 3 Years Jatna is not recognized. How can you receive our petition when you don't recognize us? One of the protesters was heard. However, the petition was later smuggled by the main organizers of the protest and handed to Sankare. The crowd then dispersed a few minutes before 2 p.m. as conditioned in the permit. Thousands of Gambians, mainly youths, marched to the streets of the capital city on Monday, peeling pressure on their transitional leader, President Adama Barrow. They are demanding that he steps down in honor of the agreement he made with the 2016 coalition stakeholders. Speaker after speaker, including women, young and old, spoke in one voice, expressing willingness to ensure Barrow leaves office latest January 19, when he is expected to exercise his transitional mandate of 3 years. If he fails to honor the agreement, it will lead to massive protests until he vacates State House next month, says Lamin Drame. US-based political commentator, power indeed lies in the hands of the people. All is not well in the Gambia, says Babukar Kamara. The thousands that throng the streets leading to the capital calling for Barrow to step down at the end of the 3 years, as promised in his election campaign, is a defiance against the Gambian leadership that has never been seen before, he said. Babukar explains, an inference can be drawn that the leadership is only interested in entrenching himself in power than to deal with the issues confronting our country at the moment. The youth are angered because their hopes of a new Gambia is shattered by Barrow, and especially in the aftermath of Noah Buchuport disaster. Gambians are bleeding with pain. Barrow must come out of his comfort zone, that's if he has any comfort at all, and engage this youth, said Babukar. However, protesters are chanting endemic corruption slogans against current system and the class structure, the recycling of Jame enablers, the selective justice, swearing unemployment rate with the government. For Star TV News, I am Maimuna Juf.
The Gambia is drafting a new constitution that will replace the 1997 constitution, which has been amended more than 50 times by former President Yahya Jammeh in an effort to prolong his stay in power. The former president's rule was characterized by detention without trial, disappearances without a trace, torture, inhuman treatment, and various forms of human rights violations. This is my report. President Adama Barrow unveiled the Constitutional Review Commission (CRC), comprising of 11 commissioners on 4th June 2018. The commission is established by an Act of Parliament mandated with the responsibility of drafting a new constitution for the country that will represent the views and aspirations of all Gambians irrespective of tribe, region, religion, and political affiliation. The CRC has since commended its job of drafting a new constitution. completed its first round of national consultation, received and analyzed position papers, and is on its final national consultation. However, the national consultation has triggered a national debate on various provisions of the draft constitution, and this has drawn the attention of the majority Muslim community on the rights of marriage, section 52, 1 subsection 2, and the inclusion of the word secular, while heightening concerns among the minority Christian community on the inclusion of the word secular in the preamble of the draft constitution. Alassane Demba, a student at a Quranic memorization center in Jara, Soma, added his voice to the debate on rights of marriage provision on the draft constitution. Of the draft constitution, as well as the issue of public mosque liquidated at government offices. The draft constitution describes the right to marriage in section 52, subsection 1, as men and women of full age and capacity have the right to marry and found a family, as well as in section 52, subsection 2, which states, marriage shall be based on free and full consent of the intended parties. We are ready to defend our religion at all costs, even if it means to sleep in thatched houses, eat bad foods with our families, but we will not allow anyone to introduce anything in the constitution that is against the wish of the majority Muslims. We have started seeing and hearing a lot of comments, some even suggesting that all mosques located at government departments and institutions should be grounded. This should not be allowed to happen in this country, Demba disclosed. According to him, the Commission should explain on their interpretation of Section 52, subsection 1 and Section 52, subsection 2 to clear doubts, arguing that leaving these sections open will give room for growth of homosexuality and related vices in Gambian societies. He added that secularism is a Western philosophy meant to demystify Islam and give ways for paganism and homosexuality in the country. Demba called on the Commission to pay heed to the wishes and aspirations of majority Gambians in the draft if the Commission's work is to be endorsed by majority Gambians. He argued that if homosexuality and secularism is allowed in the Constitution, majority Gambians will reject the new Constitution. Pastor Moses Sonko, a member of the Gambia Christian Council, is a keen follower of the constitutional building process and has followed the commission from Banjul to Basse to add his voice to the process. He told reporters that even though the word secular has never been inscribed in the preamble of the Gambian constitution, Christians in the country are anticipating the insertion of the word secular into the draft constitution in a bid to protect the minority Christian community living in the Gambia. There is a hidden agenda of slowly Islamizing the nation. If all these clauses are there to protect different beliefs, why are they, CRT, insisting on not inserting the word secular in the draft constitution? Pastor Sonko argued. The CRT is not a religious organization, it is not a political organization, and it does not represent any particular interest groups. It represents the interest of every Gambian and everything about the Gambia, said CRT Chairman Justice Cherno Suleiman Jallo. He added that everything you have suggested is written down, and I can assure you that we will properly consider them. What we told everybody across the country is that everything that has been said cannot all go into this constitution, and anything that is not captured into the constitution will be reflected in our recommendations. For Star TV News, Ajakari Sanya. Justice Cherno Suleiman Jallo, chairman of the Constitutional Review Commission, said he and his whole team are saddened over the ongoing chaos regarding the words secular, secularism, and secularization between the Muslims and the Christians. Jacqueline Coley reports.
In addressing the gathering at Westfield before the commencement of the normal process of consultation at the Youth Monument, where the last stage of the consultation with the public is held, Justice Cherno Suleiman Jallo stressed that he has observed there is a heated debate between the two religions over secularism. He noted that, at the beginning of the consultation, he advised both religions not to allow secularism to take a religious tone, but he has observed a war of words between the parties. He further said that he pleaded with the Muslims to exercise understanding with the Christians because they have fear of what happened a few years back when the Gambia was declared an Islamic state by the former president Yahya Jammeh. He urged both religions to bury their grudges and work together as a nation for the betterment of the country. In another development, Justice Cherno Suleiman Jallo threw light on the issue of Sharia. He said only the name changed, but its processes are still the same. He said the commission learned that Kadi means judge, so therefore it made no sense calling it Kadi Court. The name was changed from the Kadi Court to Sharia Court, and this court is limited to marriage, divorce, and inheritance, and it operates in Sharia laws and can judge only Muslims. Jacqueline Colley, reporting for Star TV News.
4 Gambian victims of former President Yahya Jammeh are departing the country for Turkey for treatment today. The 4 were given their tickets at a ceremony hosted by the country's Truth Commission on Friday. 3 of the victims, Abdul Karim Jammeh, Yusuf Mbai, and Umi Jain, were part of the students who were shot by security forces in 2000. They still live with severe health problems. Maimuna Juf.
14 people were killed during the protests, and lot others, including Jammeh, Mbai, and Jain, had to endure severe health implications. The third victim, Nogonjai, was one of the people arrested on April 14, 2016. Jai was part of the Gambians led by Ibrahim Osolo Sanden, who protested for electoral reforms under the authoritarian Gambian leader. They were arrested and allegedly tortured. Sanden died and some of their colleagues were sick. After their release, 5 among the jail opposition activists died. Though their cause of death was not established, it was blamed on their alleged torture and incarceration. The victims will be given 3 female escorts. Turkey grants 25 free treatments to Gambians each year. Ismail Sefa Youssef, the Turkish ambassador to the Gambia, has said Youssef first met with the victims in 2017. The victims have suffered a lot. They have sacrificed a lot, their lives and health for this country. We consider a support like this to be very sacred, said Ambassador Youssef. The air tickets were sponsored by individual Gambians and institutions. Papa Yusuf Njai of Unique Solutions donated 2 air tickets. Gambia Ports Authority donated 3 air tickets. The Truth Commission provided 2 air tickets and $31,500 allowance for the victims. Dr. Baba Gali Jallo, the executive secretary of the commission, said the allowances to the victims will be paid from the $1 million government gave to the commission. The ceremony was attended by the chair of the commission, Dr. Lamin Sise. Adelaide Sauce, the head of the victim support unit at the commission, said Turkey has more than demonstrated that it is willing to help. We have just come from regional hearings on witch hunting, and victims do not just need psychological support. They are also complaining of hypertension and other forms of health complications, added Sauce. The gesture by Turkey was welcomed by Baba Haidara, the board chair of the Victim Center. I want to thank Turkey for this. We will never forget it. This is the first time we have support of this magnitude from a foreign mission in the country, said Haidara. This is an opportunity we have been waiting for 19 years. We thank the partners immensely for the help, said Abdul Karim Jammeh. For Star TV News, I am Maimuna Juf.
We'll be going for a short break and we'll be back with the international news. And now news beyond our borders. Increasing attacks and the collaboration between armed groups are jeopardizing the safety of thousands of civilians and soldiers in the Sahel desert, according to the intelligence reports. An attack last week claimed by the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant ISIL or ISIS is in town of Innis. West Niger caused the highest number of deaths in recent history on the Niger Army. The violence has raised new humanitarian concerns in the region. Al Jazeera's Ahmed Idris reports from Mali's capital, Bamako.
Surrounded by friends and family, Mohammed Akhteged describes his near-death experience when ISIL fighters attacked the town of Inatis last week, for the 3rd time this year. They'd returned to Inatis a few months ago, hoping to rebuild their lives, but were again forced to return to this camp in Airu, around 50 kilometers from Inatis.
When we first came here, we almost died because of hunger. We were under attack and we could have died, so we fled. We'll never return home again.
Armed groups in the remote and lawless Sahel desert region recently escalated attacks on both military bases and civilian communities, killing hundreds and forcing thousands to seek safety. Like many people in the Airu camp for the displaced, Mariama Wallet Ahmed said she ran out of options of where to go.
We fled from Inatis because of insecurity, and it's everywhere we go. We are frightened. We don't feel safe.
Refugees in the camp are desperate with little protection from the elements or much food to eat.
People are suffering from hunger and they can't go back to their village. Those who return to the village have fled again. Security conditions are deteriorating day after day and there's no hope they might improve.
The attack on Inatis last week caused the highest number of casualties in living memory on Niger's army in a single day.
And more attacks are expected because intelligence reports suggest increased collaboration between ISIL and other armed groups here in West Africa. Also likely are more killings and displacement in a region already unable to cope with thousands of refugees from previous raids. Ahmed Idris, Al Jazeera, Bamako.
Turkey's president is promising military help for Libya's internationally recognized government. The two sides earlier signed a deal which includes expanding maritime boundaries, which could potentially help Ankara shore up its energy supplies. But the offer of military help could lead to a direct confrontation with the UAE, Egypt and other countries who back renegade military commander Khalifa Haftar. Haftar is attempting to take the capital Tripoli, where the internationally recognized government is based. Al Jazeera's Andrew Chappell reports.
The UN-recognized government in Tripoli is under attack. Warlord Khalifa Haftar has called for a decisive battle nearly 8 months after his offensive began. Last week, his forces shot down a Turkish drone and captured an important camp for militias allied to the government of National Accord south of the city. Now Turkey has offered to step up its support to the Tripoli government. President Erdogan recently signed maritime and military deals and says he's ready to send troops to Libya if requested.
With these agreements, the rights of both Turkey and Libya will be protected in the Mediterranean. The individual called Haftar is definitely not a legitimate president or prime minister. He is just a person who appears to be illegitimate.
Turkish military support could put it on a collision course with the UAE, Jordan and Egypt, which are backing Haftar.
Sadly, we see proxy wars supported by many nations in Libya, which has caused devastation for the people. We want the Libyan people to rise from these troubles, and we want to see peace between the factions and a clear political direction between them.
Complicating matters further, Libya's UN-recognized government says hundreds of Russian mercenaries are also fighting for Haftar, though Russia denies this.
If Haftar continues his assault, as seems likely, and Turkey continues to live up to its commitment, there is danger of an escalation of this conflict, which might turn into a regional issue.
The Tripoli government has not accepted the offer from Turkey yet. If it does, a quick reaction force could be sent, capable of fighting on the ground, sky, and sea. Andrew Chappell, Al Jazeera.
3 days of national mourning have been declared after dozens of its soldiers were killed in attacks linked to Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant, ISIL or ISIS, this week. Al Jazeera's Ahmed Idris reports from Mali's capital, Bamako.
It's been a tragic week for countries of the Sahel. Funerals have taken place of 71 soldiers killed by fighters linked to Islamic State in Niger. It's the biggest loss ever suffered by the country in a day, and its president promised the country will not forget their sacrifice.
I have come here to express my feeling of revulsion on behalf of all my compatriots in the face of a war imposed on us by an enemy who has addressed us with nothing but aggression in a violent and treacherous manner. This enemy took 71 of the nation's valorous children.
In neighboring Nigeria, Boko Haram fighters executed 4 aid workers kidnapped in July. In Mali's capital, Bamako, a national dialogue is underway. It's struggling with ethnic violence and the threat of armed groups in the north.
Over the next 1 week, delegates in this hall will try to discuss issues that are threatening to tear Mali apart. Organizers hope that whatever is resolved will help bring peace to the country. But the major problem is the absence of people central to Mali's problems, including the armed groups, as well as a political opposition that is angry about the conduct and outcome of last year's presidential election.
President Ibrahim Boubacar Keïta is hopeful that at the end of the talks here, Malians will choose peace and not war.
It will be a question for you to examine the country to see where the evil comes from and how to treat it. You are a force of suggestion, and the country will expect that this meeting will improve the situation.
But for now, it's not clear if the president's assurances are enough to convince everyone to embrace peace. There is anger and frustration on the streets in reaction to the ongoing violence in the region, despite the presence of international troops.
It's not that we are obsessed about their departure. What we want is a change of tact and policy. There's so much killing, so many orphans and widows. Enough is enough. Despite the presence of international forces, attacks continue.
What game is France playing here? If it's to entrench neocolonialism, then we say no. In that case, it should go.
Many Malians have described the national dialogue as an important step, but it's not clear if it will lead to peace and reconciliation in a divided nation. Ahmed Idris, Al Jazeera, Bamako.
Sudan's former president Omar al-Bashir has been found guilty of corruption and sentenced to 2 years in detention. But the 75-year-old will not serve his time in prison. Instead, he will be sent to a reform center for elderly people. The trial centered around suitcases filled with more than $130 million found in al-Bashir's home. Al Jazeera's Hiba Morgan reports from the capital, Khartoum.
The verdict is announced following weeks of hearings in the corruption trial of Sudan's longtime leader and ousted President Omar al-Bashir.
Regarding cases with the aforementioned age of Bashir, the court sentences the defendant to 2 years in a community reform centre.
The judgment was followed by chaos in court, with Bashir's lawyers and supporters rejecting the verdict. They accused the judge of bias. Bashir denied illegally possessing and smuggling foreign currency. Soldiers searching his home after he was deposed in April found suitcases containing around $130 million. Bashir said much of the money was a gift from the Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. During months of protest demanding the end of his 30 years in power, demonstrators also called for justice and accountability for what they say is Bashir's many crimes. Many think the verdict is too lenient.
This just shows that the legal system has not changed. What about the protesters who have been killed in demonstrations against him for years? What about those who have been sentenced to death and to prison for lesser crimes?
In contrast, hundreds showed their support for the former president and his now dismantled party. Supporters chanted against the 4-month-old transitional government, accusing leaders of failing to be inclusive and leading the country into what they view as chaos. Saturday's verdict isn't the end of former President Bashir's legal problems. While in prison, he was charged with inciting and participating in the killing of protesters during the uprising against his government, which started a year ago. And just days before the verdict, he was charged over his role in the 1989 coup that brought him to power. All that's happening while many continue to call for accountability for other crimes they feel hold greater importance. Abu Bakr Ali fled from the western region of Darfur 15 years ago and came to the capital, Khartoum. He's one of more than 2 million displaced in the war that the UN says killed 300,000 Sudanese and which the International Criminal Court categorizes as genocide.
Bashir gave orders for the killings, for the rapes in Darfur and the forced displacement. I've witnessed villages being burned, women being raped by militiamen with my own eyes. Where is the justice for all that?
Many here say they've waited too long to see justice served. They also say that the fact Bashir has been tried at all gives hope that it won't be too long before he's held to account for his other alleged crimes. Hiba Morgan, Al Jazeera, Khartoum.
Before we end the news, a recap of our main headlines. Protesters reject Sankara to receive 3 years journalist petition. Gambia's path to a new constitution interests religious groups across the country. Noga Njai, 3 victims of April 10 and 11 get free medical treatment in Turkey. That's all for this edition of the news. Please enjoy the rest of our programs and join us